Okay, so we're leaving the cervical and brachial plexuses behind and going on to the lumbar plexus. And so lumbar plexus is formed from the anterior ventral rami from L1, L4, supplying the skin and muscles of the abdominal wall, the external genitalia, and parts of the lower limbs. And I may have said earlier, I can't remember if I said this earlier or not. So just to be clear, the ventral and dorsal rami of the spinal nerve have both sensory and motor nerves in them. They're not just motor nerves. I can't remember if I may have misspoken earlier. I can't remember. So just remember these nerves carry both sensory and motor fibers. So sensory information up and motor coming down. Okay, the major nerves coming out of the lumbar plexus. So lumbar plexus is in the lumbar region. The major nerves are the femoral and the obturator. You may remember the obturator foramen from the pelvic bone, and we'll take a look at that here in a second. The sacral plexus, with the obturator foramen being whole, so what do you think goes through that hole? It's called the obturator foramen. Sacral plexus is formed from the anterior ventral rami of L4 through S4, supplying the buttocks, perineum, and most lower limbs. So the major nerves are the pudendal and the sciatic nerves. The sciatic nerve is composed of nerves from the L4 S3 region. It's a very large nerve. It's really big around. It includes the tibial and the common fibular, also referred to as the common peroneal nerves. And it goes in front of the piriformis muscle. If you guys ever heard of the piriformis muscle, a lot of times you have lots of stretches. If you run, you'll do piriformis stretches. At the level of the knee, it splits into the tibial, splits anterior and posteriorly to the tibial, which is the posterior, and anteriorly to the common fibular nerve. Okay, next slide. So, lumbar plexus. So here we go. We have the nerves come out of here. We're talking about the obturator and the femoral nerves coming out of the lumbar plexus. That's the only ones I want you to worry about is those two nerves. So the other ones I'm not going to worry about so much. You can learn those later for your own fun. So here's your obturator nerve here, and you'll notice, what is it coming out of? Coming out of the obturator foramen. So the foramen, that's a foramen for the obturator nerve. And that comes down and innervates the muscles of the inner thigh. The femoral nerve here comes down and it innervates the muscles of the upper thigh here, so the quadriceps. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we have the sacral plexus. So we have the sciatic nerve and the pudendal nerve. So nerves that come out of the sacral plexus, and the brachial plexus is studied and it's kind of regular looking. The sacral and lumbar plexus are just more like masses of nerves. They come together and they separate, but and people have mapped these out quite extensively. But I'm not going to ask you to learn what those regions are. The pudendal nerve comes out and it innervates muscles of the perineum. Okay, so the pelvic floor muscles. Then the sciatic nerve, so that was the pudendal nerve. And the sciatic nerve comes down, and this is the posterior, so we have the sciatic nerve is here, okay? And then you can see it splits here. And so one branch goes posterior, and that will be the tibial. And the other branch goes, oops, sorry about that, too far. The other branch here is the common fibular, okay? And so it goes anterior. So the tibial nerve innervates the calf muscles, and the common fibular nerve wraps around the fibula and innervates the anterior part of the leg, so your shin region. Next slide. Okay, so the lumbar plexus has the obturator and femoral nerves, so you have the adductor muscles, the inner thigh muscles, responsible for adduction of the hips. So that means you have your legs spread apart, and you can bring your leg together like that. Femoral nerve is the quadriceps, so that's your quads on the front part of your leg, upper leg. Sacral plexus You have your pudendal nerve, the muscle of the perineum, sciatic nerve, the hamstrings. It innervates the hamstrings, and then it splits into the tibial and common fibular. So you have the posterior is the calf muscles of the tibial, and the common fibular nerve is the anterior muscles of the leg and foot. So you can think of the tibial nerve is going to make your, so if this is your foot, see if I can get it. His tibial nerve is going to help you do plantar flexion. The fibular nerve is going to help you do dorsiflexion of the foot. Okay, because it's on the muscles on the front are going to pull your toes up, and the calf muscles of the back are going to pull your toes down. Okay, next slide. So here's your obturator innervating the inner thigh, and your femoral. Here's your little diagram that you can color in. Femoral is doing the quadriceps femoris muscles, the quads. Next slide. Sacral plexus, you have the pudendal, so that's the pelvic floor. The common fibular is the anterior portion of the leg. Sciatic nerve doing the hamstrings, and tibial nerve doing the calves, the gastrocnemius and the soleus muscles. Next slide. So here's a diagram, and you'll notice that you can follow these nerves out of the plexuses and out of the vertebrae once you find them. So here's your femoral nerve. Here is number one there, and you can follow it down. You can see it branches down here and doesn't continue on. So that tells you this is anterior view on the left side here. So that tells you that these nerves stop here in the upper thigh portion. Then you have the pudendal is number 2, and so you can see that those nerves are coming right over here and doing the pelvic floor. Then number 3 is the obturator, that's doing the inner thigh muscles there. And then number 4 is your sciatic, and it's on the back. So we'll look on the back side here. So here's sciatic, and there's branches here that are doing the hamstrings, and then it splits into the tibial, and the common fibular, or common peroneal, if you want to call it that. Next slide. Okay, just to point out that there are cutaneous innervations along with these as well, and the cutaneous innervations are in they overlap pretty, in some cases with the muscular innervations, but they also, like the femoral nerve, does the femoral region, the quads, but it also picks up sensory information from way all the way down here in the calf and all the way down, the ankle and down to near the bottom of the foot here. Okay, next slide. Let's see. So the I don't think there's anything I want to show you on this. This slide was showing you exactly what muscles were innervated. We don't need to go through that. So next slide. And this shows a close-up view of some of the muscles that are innervated by the femoral nerve and the obturator nerve. Obturator nerve innervates the adductor group. The femoral nerve is innervating. In addition to the femoral, to the quadriceps muscles, is innervating some of these other muscles here. The iliacus muscle up here, as well as the pectineus muscle. So, but mostly it's doing the quadriceps there. Okay, next slide. Sacral plexus, back down to it, and so you have the it's innervating the gluteus muscles. Sciatic nerve does the hamstrings, and pudendal nerve doing the pelvic floor and all the stuff that's down there. So, and here is showing the sacrum here, and so you have these sacral foramina. Okay, so where the nerves are coming out. Okay, all right, next slide. So here's the sacral plexus, a diagram of it showing the fibular portion and the tibial portion of the sciatic nerve. And then we have the pudendal nerve down here. So the pudendal nerve comes from S2, 3, and 4, and the sciatic nerve comes from basically all of them, have contributions to it, L4 through S4. Okay, next slide. Just another look at the sciatic nerve coming down. See if there's anything else I need to show you on this. I don't think so. Except for notice your common peroneal nerve and the wraparound it does right here around the fibula. So we're going to talk about that in a second. Okay. And the pathway of the common fibular nerve coming right around, it goes underneath this muscle. This muscle's been cut here, so you see it's going along underneath that muscle, wrapping around the head of the fibula there. Next slide. Sciatic nerve, showing just the some muscular as well as cutaneous innervations of the sciatic nerve, and most of the cutaneous innervations are they're mostly in the lower leg, a little below the knee. All right, next slide. So, and this is the largest nerve in the body, sciatic nerve. Comes from L4, L5, and S1 through S3. And it leaves through the greater sciatic notch or greater sciatic foramen. It goes below the piriformis, which is here. You know, where the piriformis muscle, that's that muscle that's going across here. So it goes underneath that. So if you have compression, you can have compression of the piriformis, by the piriformis on the sciatic nerve. And so if you had compression there, then you would have radiating pain. You could have radiating pain all the way down your leg. So if you have pressure on this nerve, either from piriformis or other reasons, then you could have compression, say up in the sacral region or in the lower lumbar region. Then you can have pain radiating down your leg because you have compression on these L4 and L5. You could the lumbar region. You can have say you have a disc herniation. You have radiating pain all the way down. Okay. Anything else? No. Okay. And then it splits somewhere in here, somewhere on the back leg, usually getting close to the knee, into the tibial, and the peroneal or fibular nerve. Next slide. So that's just showing the branches again. I'm not going to go over that. Next slide. So this is showing the muscles of the femoris, biceps femoris, and the muscles of the hamstrings, the semitendinous, semimembranous muscles with sciatic nerve branches of it are innervating it. Next slide. Common fibular nerve, I don't need to go over that. It's just doing the posterior, the anterior muscles of the leg, so it's just showing where it travels. Next slide. So the fibular nerve coming down for the anterior portion of the leg, the tibial nerve doing the back side of the leg. Next slide. And so here's showing this. Here's a common peroneal nerve, and you can see it right underneath the head of the fibula there. And it branches into a more anterior portion and a more lateral portion. So you have the, and the functions of it are everting the foot. So you evert the foot, and then, evert the foot. I guess evert the foot, and then if that was my leg, and so evert the foot, and then dorsiflex the foot, and then extend the toes also. All right. Tibial nerve going down the back side, so it's doing the calf muscles. And showing the gastrocnemius and the soleus muscles here. Okay. This is mostly what's innervating. Next slide. And showing the gastrocnemius and the soleus muscles here. Okay. This is mostly what's innervating. Next slide. Okay. So one of the things that you want to know is, okay, so in part, what's the big deal about all this? Well, one thing is, where do if you want to give an intramuscular injection, you want to kind of try to avoid all the nerves that are coming out. So one of the big nerves you want to, it's easy to hit, would be the sciatic nerve. So what you do is you look at the back side here, and you divide that into quadrants. And so you look at the iliac crest up here, go across there, and then you want to be in this upper quadrant, either on the left side or on the right side, to do your injection, because if you go down in the lower part, then you have a much better chance of hitting the sciatic nerve. Next slide. So what happens if you damage the sciatic nerve? You get what's called a foot drop, so that you aren't able to extend the hip easily. You also don't flex the knee very well. You get motor wasting. The muscles below the knee would be paralyzed, and the weight of the foot causes it to plantar flex. It's called foot drop. And so someone will walk along and then they'll plop their foot down and plop their foot down. So it's kind of stamping gait, or is what it's called. Next slide. If you have a tibial nerve injury, it's deep, so it's rarely injured. But if you add the tibial nerve injured, the opposing muscles, if you remember I just described to you the common fibular nerve, does eversion of the foot and also dorsiflexes the foot at the ankle. Well, then what's going to happen is if there's no opposing muscle in the calf to do that, then your foot's is going to evert and dorsiflex. Okay, so since the calf muscles aren't opposing that, if the tibial nerve is damaged. Next slide. Then if you have a common peroneal nerve or common fibular nerve injury, so right here's the nerve, you have a breakage of the fibula near the head, a fracture up there, you can damage that nerve. And so what's going to happen is you're not able to, since that is doing the anterior muscles, you aren't able to dorsiflex your foot as well, so your foot's going to hang down, you're going to have foot drop, and the toes are going to drag as you drag your foot behind you. So, and drag the toes and plop the foot down, drag and plop the foot down. So that would be a common peroneal nerve injury. Next slide.